The cruelest exercise of power is not destruction. It is not confrontation. It is not revenge. It is silence. It is withdrawal. It is leaving someone with no ending, no explanation, no closure. Machiavelli saw that humans are not addicted to pleasure, and they are not even addicted to love. They are addicted to certainty. Minds crave conclusion. They seek tidy endings, neat boxes to put facts into. Without that closure, people unravel. They replay the scene again and again. They scratch at the wound, trying to find meaning. They cannot move on. That is why withholding closure becomes one of the most devastating psychological weapons you can deploy. Closure brings peace. Without it, people live in chaos. That chaos keeps them endlessly fixated on you. Most people believe they want happiness, but what they truly seek is an answer. They want to know why something happened, where they stand, how the story finishes. Imagine someone abandoned with no explanation. Their life might look intact, but their mind is chained to the question, why? That question is leverage. If you hand someone closure, you free them. You untie the knot. They walk away lighter, calmer, more composed. But if you deny them an answer, they cannot walk away. You occupy their thoughts. You own their attention. Machiavelli would warn, do not explain more than is necessary. The more you explain, the more you set them free. The less you explain, the more a complete story dies. An incomplete story lives forever. Shakespeare's plays reach an ending. Machiavelli's lessons do not. Why? Because Machiavelli speaks in principles, not in final acts. His writings invite endless interpretation. They never truly conclude. That is why his influence echoes across centuries. The same rule applies to people. Never hand them the final page. A full-blown argument where you yell everything you feel, justify yourself completely, and slam the door will exhaust the other person. They will recover. A silent exit, leaving them unsure of your anger or your return, will haunt them. Unfinished business holds power greater than resolution because the mind cannot leave an unsolved puzzle alone. Machiavelli wrote that it is often wiser to appear less transparent than you really are. When people are left guessing, they start doing the work for you. If you refuse to explain yourself, they begin inventing explanations. If you conceal your intentions, they start imagining your next move. If you deny them closure, they rewrite the story 1,000 different ways. Every version they invent keeps you alive in their minds. They cannot escape you. And the beauty is that while they burn their energy-spinning theories, you move freely, untouched by the storm they create. You have advanced, but they remain trapped in the absence you left behind. Notice how often people demand closure in relationships, in betrayals, in conflicts. They say, just be honest with me. Or, I only need to understand. What they are truly asking is, please release me. They think knowing the truth will heal them. They fail to see that closure is often nothing more than a final illusion. The one who begs for closure is really saying, take away my dependency on you. Free me from your control. If you give it, you surrender your leverage. If you withhold it, you remain the unsolved equation they cannot stop obsessing over. Machiavelli would remind us, if you want control, never hand people the key to escape you. Yet we live in a culture obsessed with healthy communication, with finishing things properly, with being clear, transparent, and honest. But who benefits from this? Closure benefits them, not you. It gives them peace. It grants them freedom. It allows them to walk away with dignity and satisfaction. Why should you offer such a gift? If someone has wronged you, betrayed you, or underestimated you, silence cuts deeper than curses. A cold, quiet withdrawal is sharper, heavier, and far more unforgettable than words. You do not need to shout. You do not need to explain. You simply vanish. And in that silence, they carry the weight of an unfinished sentence forever. Every explanation you hand over is a rope they can climb. With enough of them, They pull themselves out of the pit of chaos and free their mind from you. Machiavelli would advise, never over-explain. Speak less than you know. Reveal less than you think. Leave blanks in every story because the human mind cannot tolerate a void. It fills silence with imagination, with paranoia, with endless replay. Imagination is always crueler than fact. Your silence turns their mind into your instrument. With a lover, the contrast is brutal. Endings that are long and loud soothe them. They cry, they process, they heal, and within weeks they move on. But a disappearance without explanation becomes a persistent ache. They keep asking if you will return. They inventory every moment for signs of fault. You become a recurring character in their future relationships. That lingering question is leverage. You are not merely absent. You inhabit their nights, their habits, their expectations. Against an enemy, full disclosure grants them armor. If you shout all your reasons and place every motive on the table, they learn how to counter you and how to justify themselves. Closure gives them righteous certainty. A silent withdrawal, however, traps them in solitary replay. They cannot marshal against you because they do not know what to defend. Their resources are wasted on speculation. Your power grows in their confusion. At work, the same rule applies. Explain a disagreement and the conflict ends. No mystery, no momentum. But leave ambiguity, and colleagues spend days guessing your view of them. They adjust. They second-guess. They behave as if you are everywhere. Your unresolved stance bends their decisions. Uncertainty is a quiet form of dominance. Fear fades. Outright pain dulls. Only uncertainty is ineradicable. An open wound will scar. An unanswered question keeps bleeding each time it is thought about. That is why Machiavelli treats closure like mercy, and mercy as weakness. To hand someone the ending is to hand them the key. To refuse it is to keep the lock. Silence, mystery, absence. These are not mere tactics because they inflict direct harm. They are powerful because they compel people to self-destruct in service of your presence. When their mind becomes your prison guard, you have mastered one of Machiavelli's darkest and most effective levers of influence. A tidy ending frees them. An unfinished tale imprisons them and keeps them turning in circles for you. You do not wound people by striking them. You wound them by never finishing the sentence. By letting their thoughts run in loops inside your silence, always one step behind, chasing a version of you that no longer exists. Once you abandon someone without closure, they do the rest for you. They invent reasons. They blame themselves. They blame you. They rewrite the past, reach, seek revenge, and sink into dependence. And you, the one who left, never lift a finger. You have already won. This is the key. Exiting without an ending creates an emotional asymmetry. You depart complete. They remain unresolved. That open loop dominates their subconscious even when they pretend otherwise. They claim they have moved on. They post, they laugh, they speak as if indifferent. But this is a performance because the real story never closed. Momentum becomes one-sided. You process the rupture. They are still processing you. You are silent. They monologue. You filed the case. They remain on the same page. That imbalance is not cruelty. It is advantage. Machiavelli would call it positioning. Power is maintained not by direct coercion of behavior, but by remaining the unresolved question in someone else's mind. As long as they are wondering about you, you control the field. What we call ghosting is a blunt form of this law, but it need not be childish. Used deliberately, it acts like a lever. You build intensity quickly. You mirror needs. You bond. Then you vanish. No argument. No neat ending. Only absence. That absence produces a vacuum where emotion amplifies. They overanalyze. They feel rejected. They feel abandoned. You become omnipresent and nowhere at once. You are a ghost in their private theater. They dream of you. They hate you. They plot to fix what is broken. They monitor you. They conjure scenarios where they win you back. All that energy is harnessed for you. It does not matter if it is love or fury. Obsession masks itself as devotion. If you want to wield this principle with precision, you do not disappear at random. You stage the exit with intention. The moment you step away is calibrated to maximize the unresolved tension, not by a checklist, but by reading how invested they are, by understanding the pattern of their attachment, and by leaving before their narrative can fully account for your absence. The art is to become the unanswered question they cannot stop returning to, not merely an irritant, but the axis around which their days revolve. This is strategic absence at surgical scale. Step 1 is to give them an emotional high. Right before you disappear, deliver the surge, a piercing compliment, an intimate connection, a vulnerable moment. The spike creates contrast, and contrast imprints memory. Step 2 is to vanish at the peak. Most relationships collapse during conflict or decay. You withdraw when everything feels powerfully alive. This scrambles the mind. It breaks the expected curve of the story. Now they are hooked on a climax that never finished. Step 3 is absolute silence. Not, I can't do this. Not, it's not your fault. Not, I need space. Nothing. The less you say, the more their imagination takes control. Silence feeds projection. Step 4 is the optional return. If you reappear, you do so lightly. A like, a short message, a vague emoji. Just enough to stir the ashes and let them ignite the fire on their own. You are neither hero nor villain. You are the unresolved character. And unresolved characters live longer in the human soul than any conclusion ever could. This is the twist of psychology. People denied closure rarely walk away clean. They circle back, not for repair, not for vengeance. They return for resolution. Their mind whispers, "You must finish this." Yet there is no finish. That is the design. In reaching back, they are weakened. They are not negotiating from strength, but from disarray. You hold position. You hold detachment. You control the story. They have been thinking of you. You have not been thinking of them. That distance is the root of psychological dominance. Machiavelli's philosophy is not about cruelty for its own sake. It is about control. It is about placing yourself in a position where others are forced to react to you, never the reverse. Refusing closure fits seamlessly into this doctrine. When you leave someone unresolved, you dictate the rhythm. You lodge yourself in their internal world. You strip them of autonomy. You become embedded in their emotional frame. From that point forward, even your silence becomes command. You never demand loyalty, but they give it. You never beg for attention, yet they obsess. You never justify your absence, yet they chase your reasons. This is not emotional recklessness. It is calculated leverage. It is a cold form of influence that cannot be purchased, taught, or faked. It is earned through a brutal decision. Never explain, never close, always leave the door open. The mind cannot release what it cannot resolve. People need no permission to hate you, but they require permission to forget you. And if you deny them that permission, if you withhold closure, you cease to be a memory. You become a reference point, a scar, a part of their identity that follows them everywhere. True genius, Machiavelli would argue, is never merely in creating obsession. It lies in staging that obsession, where it becomes public, where others do more than follow you. They defend you, serve you, and pursue you, even when you are absent. This is the moment psychological leverage becomes politics. It stops being about one person and starts being about how your silence is read by the group. When someone is denied closure, they seek it externally. They ask friends, colleagues, strangers, "Have you heard from them? What do you think it meant?" Each question spreads your name not because you are present, but because you remain unresolved. Absence turns into social gravity. People orbit around it. They whisper, speculate, invent narratives. That chatter does the work of reputation building for you. You do not ask for attention. You do not manufacture a persona. Your silence sculpts an image, and images are harder to destroy than flesh. Scarcity amplifies value. This is as true in social behavior as it is in economics. The rarer something is, the more it is desired. Disappear without explanation, and you create both psychic scarcity and social rarity. People remark that he no longer speaks to anyone. She vanished without a word. The mystery becomes a brand. Even resentment bows to the respect of control. Observers wonder, what does this person know that I do not? Why are they so unbothered? That question is obedience wrapped in curiosity. It signals that you have transcended the need for constant validation. Worse for them, admitting publicly that they never received closure admits their own diminution. To confess that you remain unresolved is to confess that you were not important enough to warrant an explanation. Faced with that shame, many will choose to protect your reputation rather than expose their vulnerability. They rewrite your absence as profundity, strategy, or moral steadfastness. In defending you, they defend themselves. They manufacture narratives that elevate you and preserve their dignity. This manufactured loyalty is leverage you cannot purchase. So the true art is to let the social mechanism complete the manipulation. You remain mute, while others turn your silence into currency. You do not speak, yet your presence is preserved by the very people who should have walked away. You create a public myth without issuing a single line of exposition, and that myth follows them into conversations, status checks, and public allegiances. Machiavelli would describe this untouchable legitimacy as something that is never granted but felt. It cannot be handed out like a gift. It can only be built through contradiction. You must be present yet distant, remembered yet unreachable, admired yet never fully understood. This balance creates an emotional illusion. People chase you, talk about you, pledge loyalty to you, yet you remain just out of reach. Because you never grant closure, they never stop reaching. The pursuit itself becomes their cage. You become the warden, and they embrace the prison because the alternative, indifference, is too painful to endure. This is how emotional chaos hardens into ritualized loyalty. They will check for your messages years later. They will replay your words. They will study your silence and eventually pass on your legend just to validate their own unfinished story. Once you create this loop of chaos, loyalty, and social speculation, your only task is to never shatter it with too much clarity. Never try to set the record straight. Never come back with explanations. If you return, return without answers. If you speak, speak without revealing. If they press, smile and say, "Some things don't need to be said." Maintain the silhouette. Never step fully into the light. Because power never resided in what was spoken. It lived in what was left unsaid. Closure extinguishes everything. Mystery keeps it alive. This is not a trick for the weak or the insecure. In truth, the stronger and more confident a person is, the sharper this tactic cuts into them. Why? Because the strong are used to control. They are accustomed to understanding, to certainty, to dominance. When you deny them that, when you vanish from their frame, when you refuse to let them categorize you, you challenge their very sense of self. You force a collision with their ego. And suddenly, the strongest begin to act weak. They spiral. They reach. They demand answers. But you never give them what they want, because that is the law. Never grant closure. Let the mind become your cage. Let the ego work on your behalf. Let silence carry a weight that words never could. Power is not about domination through constant presence. It is about surviving through absence. When you withhold closure, you do more than shape their emotions. You invade their reality. Every future choice they make is unconsciously molded by the void you left. That void becomes sacred, untouchable, almost divine. This is the final transformation of Machiavelli's law of psychological leverage, moving from chaos to obsession to myth. Because when someone cannot close the chapter on you, they do the next best thing. They turn you into a story. And stories outlive explanations. Everyone they meet after you is measured against the ghost of your silence. Not because you were flawless, but because you were never fully real. You left before they could define you. You disappeared before they could dissect you. You stopped speaking before they could destroy your mystery. And now nothing else compares. The closure they crave becomes the prison they inhabit. And as they struggle to understand why they cannot move on, they raise your stature higher and higher in their own mind. They tell others you were different. No one else made them feel that way. They admit they still think about you, though they cannot explain why. This is not a compliment. It is a symptom of psychological submission. Once someone defends your impact in your absence, they are no longer thinking freely. They are worshipping a sensation you engineered through silence. Had you told them the truth, given them an honest explanation, guided them step by step through your reasoning, they would understand you. And once people understand you, they lose the spell. They shift into logic, into distance. The enchantment collapses. Silence is what builds the cliff. It denies resolution. It creates the sense of almost knowing. And almost knowing is far more addictive than certainty ever could be. This is why closure is not just a mistake. It is self-sabotage. When you remove yourself too cleanly, too neatly, you leave nothing for them to hold, disappear too well, and they move on. You hand them the weapon to forget you. You make yourself digestible. And to Machiavelli, being remembered politely is the weakest way to be remembered at all. To be remembered violently, to haunt rather than to linger, is the mark of true influence. When someone says, "They ghosted me," what they are truly confessing is this: they never gave me the dignity of closure, and I cannot forgive them because I still want it. This is the secret. Even hatred keeps you relevant. Even resentment is attention. The only state you must never allow yourself to enter is oblivion. Machiavelli would call this strategic cruelty. You do not shout. You do not punish. You do not say goodbye. You vanish while they still care. From there, the loop takes over. They check their messages. They hope for a sign. They wait for a word, any word, but nothing arrives. Silence grows louder than speech ever could. It echoes at night. Worse still, they fill it with stories of their own making just to survive the absence. Their imagination does the labor for you. This principle is not confined to love. It is a universal weapon of dominance. In politics, a rival who never hears your plan becomes paranoid. In business, an employee you dismiss without explanation spends months trying to decode what went wrong. In friendships, someone cut off without a fight keeps watching you from a distance, trying to guess if they still matter. Even audiences fall into this trap. The creator who suddenly withholds content builds desperation because absence cuts deeper than delivery. Never granting closure means no one is ever finished with you. They cannot turn the page. You retain authorship of the story by refusing to write its last line. You do not need perfection. You do not need universal love. You need only to remain unresolved. Leave behind emotional gaps so sharp, so specific to your presence, that no one else can fill them. No explanation can replace them. No ending can erase them. They will try. They will try again. And the longer they try, the stronger you grow inside them.